And so, yeah, and my mood the mood that I portray on stage is sort of the mood I had at the time of my life. Gather, my friends, I tell ye tale of a lad's story, to which I will unveil. This lad is a jester, a fool that is striven to make the best of the world he is given. This lad has no need for fortune or distraction. He seeks what we all seek, satisfaction. But enough with the stalling. Time is running thin, so sit back, relax, and I shall begin. Born is he, the day of weed, and the weight expectation he did exceed. No kisses, hugs, or toys were pursued. No, this age all he cared was food. Anything he's given, he'd surely swallow, for he'd only cry when he was hollow. He'd eat, and he'd eat, and he'd eat, and he'd eat, and yet he still would not be satisfied. But despite this habit of constant food plea, the baby, on average, was quite full of glee. He had no troubles, no future to fear, no worries at all, so long as family is near. Little did he know that would long be the case, for throughout his journey, he need not brace for any traumatic hardships to strengthen his will. No dragon that he'd have to take on and kill, no mountebank he'd visit because he was ill, no pub brawler he'd bribe as a show of goodwill. A path he must go down to reach his own goal, to do what he's meant to find his own role. As the jester got older, he strayed from himself, for the jester wanted to be someone else. He wanted action, adventure, not real ones, that's insane, for anyone would stray from that with just half a brain. But he longed for the role play, to set his imagination abroad. And due to this, people considered him odd. He remained inside, unlike most other flocks. All his entertainment lay inside a box. He would insert a circle and a world would appear. And the story of that world, his thumbs would steer. The jester would do nothing else all day, so he'd just sit there and continue to play and play and play and play. And yet he wasn't satisfied. When the jester wasn't going away at his box, the jester would leave, and often talks to the people in the village. The village is nice. It has a nice system, and the districts suffice. The villagers thought that the jester was funny. He was a bee, and that was his honey. The jester would wisecrack, and do it well, too. After all, isn't that what jester's supposed to do? The villagers gawked and laughed a lot. But did they befriend him? No, they did not. Do not ask the jester why this was the case. He'd just say he's come to face the fact that he had been on his own. And don't think he wasn't unhappy, just happy alone. The jester lived well, though not alone. He had some family of his own. One was royalty, a ruler, a queen, the wise, kindest of us all. Knew how to be mean. The next was a siren, a woman, pulchritudes, a talented reputation to remain continuous. And one day, the jester was taking his walk when, listening to the two, he had heard talk of a magic man, powerful in the art of illusion. And in listening, the lad had came to the conclusion that he'd very much like to meet this magician. and see the amazing, stupendous apparition that he'd put on at least twice a year. And if here it took place, then the siren was here. For the full 4-year complete span, the siren would work with this magic man. To collaborate with this man was essential, and he knew he'd get to do that eventually, but steps must be made before such a time. To learn, to grow, to master his mind. To substitute, the Jester discovered a miniature throng, the members of which would join in song. This chorus gave not disclosure, nor any gratification. If anything, it would just add complication. Despite this, the lad continued this thing. He plowed through and he'd sing and he'd sing and he'd sing and he'd sing. Yet, he was not satisfied. As he moved down the village, he explored this art. And in his exploring, he'd opened his heart. He met an enchantress, deceptive as she, a ghastly woman, and as cruel as can be. She cast a spell of mischievous intent. With a snap of her fingers, his feelings were bent. She appeared beautiful, a wonder to one's eyes. The curse left him hopeless and simply mesmerized. No longer a jester, but instead now a slave. Any wrongdoing towards him, he simply forgave. The enchantress would taunt and abuse the fool so, and every time she'd leave, he simply forego all the things, and would blame himself too. And she'd only do this to see that it's true. There was a point the enchantress took an absence of leave, and in her absence, the curse would still weave down this poor little jester, still head over heels, and the devotion for the woman that the jester still feels. But when time spent away grew much longer than a weekend, the enchantress's grip finally weakened. And when you move down the village, where the enchantress was, the enchantress does what she always does. "Oh, Jester, I love you!" She'd ran out of luck. "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a crap." So he strayed from this girl, and endearment altogether. It had no use. He vowed to avoid it forever. So he hid, and he hid, and he hid, and he hid, and was, unsurprisingly, not satisfied. In moving down the village, he met many friends. He hopes that follow him to many ends. A con was the fact the enchantress was there, but a pro, the magic man could teach him his flair. He had lastly reached the climax of his plan. He was working with the magic man. This man took the jester under his wing and gave him confidence to do anything. For the things that he did were an awe to one's mind. For of the things he did, there were no other kind. He took him and many others to places abroad, but one in particular he would forget not. The magicians prepared, as the patrons did too. And he sat there, simply waiting for his cue. The cover ascended, revealing the magic. The crowd's envyism, so auditorily obvious, it was nearly tragic. But that was not all. No, there was much more to do. For no one could prepare the crowd for what was to ensue. Suddenly, the crew crawled in from each side. They grabbed any object that would lie inside. They fidgeted with the handgun, the word presser, the shrine. As for him, he plucked on the line. Unanimously, everyone's muscles would tense. As each moment, the feeling would get more intense. The patrons watched as the spectacle went on. Each moment viewed was a moment withdrawn, and inside a fire burned aglow, and each patron's smile would fuel it so. The extravagant movements were a practical snare for the audience's endless, catatonic stare that was taken, remembered, and collected in awe from each shubida-bui, shubida-ba, shubida-bui, puya. And to the hard beat of the hand against the outside of the chest, that he would not lose, trying his very best, to the heartbeat of his blood against inside his chest, to the pain of each impact pounding each breast, and as the minstrels played their final beat, the patrons arised upon their feet, and the lanterns, scalding, burning in each eye, as pieces of parchment rained from the sky. The jester lived what he thought was a dream, and they'd scream, and they'd scream, and they'd scream, and they'd scream! Finally, he was satisfied. This jester's story is far from over. There's so much yet to be seen. He does not know what the future holds, but he looks upon it quite keen. Where he will go, and those aren't all the things that the jester's gone through, but we have limited time, and there is quite a few. And though his experience with the enchantress was rotten, awoken are feelings he thought he'd forgotten. Where they will take him, he cannot predict, for his policy on such a subject is strict. Where he will go once he must move down that village once more, he truly, at this point, cannot know for sure. But the Magic Man had surely opened up a door to something that the jester might take into action, and again reach that level of satisfaction.